Good afternoon and welcome to the Tuesday, July 11th monthly meeting of the Pitt County Department of Social Services. I'd like to call the meeting to order and observe a moment of silent prayer or silent meditation. Amen. Nobody signed up for public comments. So the next item on the agenda is to adopt or revise today's meeting agenda. And first of all, I would like to make a revision, Susan, where we move up number 7, the recognition, to follow the adoption of the agenda before we get into the business of the board. And anybody else that has a change to today's agenda?
And I would like to add a budget amendment for the adoption promotion program funds that we received.
Okay.
If there are no further changes, Madam Chair.
Do we have a second to the amended
I
agenda?
second.
Okay. All those in favor of amending the agenda as noted, moving one item and adding the adoption budget amendment? Let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, so the next item is recognition. And Jan and I will come down for that.
You got to bring candy. Melanie brought candy every meeting.
For those of you who may be viewing or sitting in the audience, the Social Services Board is a 5-member board, some of whom are appointed by the county commissioners, some of whom are appointed by the state of North Carolina, and one of whom is a representative of the Board of Commissioners. Cora Witcher has served on the board for the last 3 years as a representative appointed by the state, and her term expired with the change in Raleigh. We have a new board member coming on later in this board meeting, so we wanted to recognize Coral for her time, her effort. It takes a special person who wants to give back to a county board, to immerse themselves in it, to understand what that county department does, whether it's social services, public health, animal control. You know, as a former county employee, all of our departments benefit from folks who are willing to be volunteers and to give up their time and effort. So, first of all, in case you ever forget what your name is, it's good. You're covered there. And then the department has a plaque that says presented to Coral Witcher, Social Services Board member, in grateful appreciation for your service to Pitt County DSS and those that we serve from July 1, 2014 to June 30th, 2017. And thank you for your time. And Jan?
Yeah, we're going to miss you, Coral. You have been at so many of the activities that this agency does and have been a big supporter. And certainly, we want to keep you as a friend to this agency and want you to stay involved where you can. Thank you so much. You and I started together, so we have, we kind of lived it together.
That's right.
So do appreciate all that you've done for the
Boy, how
agency.
time flies. You were 3, you've been here 3.
Speak.
I didn't expect a prize.
And for the new board member, in case you missed that, Coral was the one who always remembered us with candy.
That's right.
So I think Miss Mary is saying that
That's exactly what I said.
Oh, my.
No way about it. Right?
Okay. I think I got the memo.
so we can do that. And yeah.
Well, I wasn't expecting, like I said, prizes. It's a privilege to be able to serve. And it's a wonderful thing when somebody in the community can come in and actually see all the hard work that happens. A lot of times behind the doors of, it's not out in the press a lot. And so I hope that anybody who has a heart for children and the elderly and those that serve will you know, whisper a prayer for those people on the front lines, and if they can, do what they can. And I hope you will call if I can be of service in any way. I'll miss you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for everything. Give you a hug.
Oh, good.
Thank you, thank you.
Enjoy at least one day of peace each month now.
And all good wishes to Mrs. Bunch.
Thank you very much.
Goodbye.
Oh, I might as well just make them.
Take care.
I just told him he has to pass it. Thank you.
Somebody's gonna have to do it.
Oh. I did not need that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So then, the first order of regular business is to adopt the minutes of the previous meeting, which were sent out in your packet last week, referencing the actions of our June board meeting. If there are no changes to the minutes, could I have a motion to adopt said minutes?
Madam Chairman, I propose that we adopt as is presented.
I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to adopt the minutes. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, now, a little more ceremonial. We have Dr. Sheila Bunch, who is our new appointee from the state, and it's time to swear her in.
I, Sheila Bunch,
I, Sheila Bunch,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support and maintain
that I will support and maintain
the Constitution of the United States.
the Constitution of the United States.
I, Sheila Bunch,
I, Sheila Bunch,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
to the state of North Carolina
to the state of North Carolina
and to the constitutional powers
and to the constitutional powers
and authorities which are or may be established
and authorities which are or may be established
for the government thereof,
for the government thereof,
and that I will endeavor
that I will endeavor
to support, maintain, and defend
to support, maintain, and defend
the Constitution of said state,
the Constitution of the said state,
not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States,
not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States,
to the best of my knowledge and ability.
to the best of my knowledge and ability.
I, Sheila Bunch,
I, Sheila Bunch,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will well and truly execute,
that I will
well
well
and truly
and
execute
truly execute
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
as a member of Pitt County Board of Social Services
as a member of Pitt County Board of Social Services
according to the best of my skill and ability,
according to the best of my skill and ability,
according to law, so help me God.
according to laws, so help me God.
Congratulations. And now, really quickly, for our new board members' benefit, if we could start down here at my far left and just your name, what you do, and then go ahead and put you guys on notice that we're probably going to ask you to stand up and do the same thing, just so she sort of got and Minnie, because of her work in social work, she will already know, but it's always good.
All right, I'm Gwen Burns. I'm Deputy Director of the agency, and Ms. Bunch and I, Dr. Bunch and I, have known each other for years.
Yeah.
Jim Cox, and likewise, Sheila and I go way back.
Yeah.
In terms of
Way back.
way back. So, welcome.
Thank you.
Mary Perkins Williams, and I represent the Pitt County Board of Commissioners. And I think you started at ECU when I did. Probably.
What year was that?
I won't tell. They wanted to know what year it was. I told him I wouldn't tell him. But welcome to the board and look forward
Thank
to
you.
being a colleague.
And Jan Elliott, Agency Director.
Melanie Bryan, retired Deputy County Manager and Scholarship Director at ECU now, and I've served on the board about 5 years.
Okay.
And I'm Becky Starkey, and as the rest of the board, we go way back. And there is no doubt you know more about this board than most folks ever would, simply based on history.
Thank you.
I'm so glad to have you.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And down here at my far right is the young lady that keeps us all on point. And you've already heard from her a lot. This is Susan May. You guys could,
And my name is Michelle McCorkle, and I'm the Family Support Services Program Administrator.
I'm Brian Averett. I'm the Economic Support Services Administrator, and that division encompasses the adult and family and children's Medicaid programs, Work First, and Vision Services.
I'm Angela Hart. I'm the business officer for Pitt DSS.
I'm Tammy Lewis. I'm the Social Work Program Administrator, and Sheila and I go way back.
everybody knows her much better than me. I'm at a disadvantage here.
I'm Keisha Adams, Social Work Supervisor for CPS Assessments, and Sheila and I go way back.
Sheila, I'm feeling left out here.
That's funny.
And then over here, who is always typically in attendance at the table. And did you get your picture taken today?
Yes.
Yes, I did.
By our, I guess she's
I
PIO
did.
staff? And then directly behind her is Ginger Livingston, who covers the DSS Board and other agencies on behalf of the Daily Reflector.
Hello. Thank you.
Okay, so now, next piece of administrative business is to select a new board chair and vice chair, and then make an appointment to the Community Child Protection Team. So,
Did we have to change?
ma'am?
I would, can't we keep the same chair?
Yes.
I would like to make the motion that we keep the same chair.
That would be
And I second it.
And, you got to finish that motion, I guess.
Yep.
Are there other nominations?
You want to be vice chair? Oh, you want to be vice chair? I'd like to nominate Jim Cox as vice chair so
And I
we can
second
give him
it.
something to do.
I second it.
My friend.
I love him.
Okay, so, Jim, are you willing?
I would do that.
Okay. Okay, so, are there any other nominations?
We got the best.
I don't know about
You and I
that, but-
agree, don't we?
Absolutely.
So that being said, the motion as made by Mary and seconded, I assume, then by
Definitely.
Becky,
second.
is that I will remain as chair and Jim will become our vice chair. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
And then, I guess Coral served on the
She was on the
Community
committee.
Child Protection Team, so we need an appointment for the Child Protection Team.
And
I-
I was gonna say, Gwen could maybe explain something
Yeah, I
about.
started to say, somebody tell me what you need
Yeah,
for that.
Okay. The Community Child Protection Team is a team of folks that meet to talk about children and their needs and the needs of what the community could do to address concerns for children. We discuss child fatalities. We discuss what resources are available for children in the community and how to bridge those gaps where services are not available for
When do they
families
meet?
and children.
When do they meet?
We meet on a quarterly basis for the Community Child Protection Team. And we also have a child fatality prevention team that also meets. But the combined team meets once a quarter. And I wanted to mention while I'm talking about it, Jim Cox already sits on the Community Child Protection Team.
That's why I was looking on that and down there.
In your position, you are.
I fill a community slot that I have for many years, and so it's appointed through the commissioners. So, so that's a different position within that. And I don't know whether my position could serve as both, or there would need to be two people.
Well, that, or could we put him in the DSS role and then allow another person from the community, which broadens your base?
That's a
You
good.
wanna do that?
So,
Because I was gonna get Sheila running hard.
Well, I think it depends on the day and time of the quarterly meeting. Is there a set day and time?
It's the third Thursday, once a quarter, and it begins at 8:00 a.m. at the health department.
And ends about?
It can end as early as 9 or as late as 10.
Okay. All right.
What was that?
do Thursdays
I'm
conflict with your
straightforward,
teaching
Sheila.
load or advising or whatever you may do over in your?
I think what may interfere if I'm away for a conference or something like that. So.
Okay.
So you serve like in the role based on what you did, were you on the board before you got on DSS as a community
Oh,
partner?
absolutely. I've been on the fatality board for probably a long time, many cycles. When I was in the School of Social Work, I sat on the board.
So when is the next meeting?
We were just talking about that.
When's that next quarterly meeting?
Yeah, I can go either way. I mean, I can. If Sheila wants to join, she could take the slot from here, and I will stay in my current position. Or, if you don't think that's good timing for you, Sheila, I think to have me slide over into the board slot.
And I will say, people don't make every meeting.
No, they don't, Sheila.
So, missing one probably wouldn't be a big deal. If you miss 3 out of 4, then that probably would be an issue.
Okay. Let me get my feet wet first. And then we will move into
We can delay, Madam Chairman, I'd like to suggest that we delay this appointment until some other time.
Well, why don't we do Jim, the way that we suggested, and then look at Sheila next year? Give her a year.
I'm fine with that.
We seem
Are
to be in
there
agreement.
representatives from the community, if we ask Jim to move over to the other slot, are we going to hamper that board?
There are other people that sit on that board right now that are community appointees. I know that. I mean, it's a pretty dedicated board. It really is. I mean, it's a good functioning board. So, so I don't know how that works, in terms of just the movement around, Melanie, in terms of how that works.
There are people on that board representing law enforcement, the
District
attorney's office. Yeah, so there's all kinds of.
Can he sit in both roles until such time, maybe that?
I suspect we could try that and see.
We can ask about it, but there are designated slots for folks, and he may not be able to.
Yeah,
sit
because they
in both
designate
slots.
slots for a reason.
Right.
to make
We could
sure.
postpone, since the meeting is not coming up immediately, until we can do some further investigation and maybe have it on the next meeting's agenda.
Right.
Sorry, Mary, I see exactly what you were talking about. That's a good idea.
That's what I was thinking.
I
And
don't think anybody will. I think that'll be fine. Yeah.
And if we could get the dates for the
Yes.
next year?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
I will get the dates that the meetings will be occurring for the next
We'll just
year.
leave the DSS position vacant for the moment, knowing that if Jim is there, he can speak on behalf of
Sure.
the agency and the board. Okay, and then you'll bring us back dates and then we'll revisit.
Yes.
Does that work for everybody?
Yep.
Okay. Items for consent. Consent items on our agenda are typically items of a routine nature. They usually are budget amendments which may require no county funds and allow us to continue our normal business operations. Since this is a first meeting for a new board member, Jan, do you want to quickly talk on the shift, the links, and the adoption assistance? Then we'll move down to the daycare and the outreach for
Sure.
Lee
Sure. The SHIFT is the Sexual Health Initiative for Teens. We get a $20,000 a year from them. Last year, towards the end of the year, they gave us $5,000 that we were not anticipating, so that's what this is. And it requires no county money. What it is doing, it's allowing us to do teen pregnancy prevention activities with our children in foster care. This is year 2, coming up on year 3, because we had a little bit of money about 2 years ago. So we just now started our second full year of this. And in fact, I'm going to have Shante, who is teaching this, come shortly to talk to you about what happens after the first class and what the outcomes are showing already. So that's what this is. It's $5,000. There's another $20,000 in our budget that was adopted by the commissioners this year. So that's what that one is. The adoption fund, we do get monies if we exceed our baseline in having adoptions done. The state does recognize that by giving us certain amounts of money for each child that is placed for adoption. Pitt County significantly exceeded their numbers. We got $24,000 already, and there's $20,000 or something more going to be coming. So, but this is the first installment of this. This is used primarily to support or encourage adoptions so that we can have more children adopted. There is no county money here. In fact, we're going to use a lot of this money for advertising for adoptive parents. We're going to try something new. We're going to put the banners on the PATS buses driving around town saying, "Wouldn't you like to adopt? Call this number." And I'm simplifying it, overly simplifying it, but that's kind of what it's going to say. So it'll be on 10 buses going all over the county.
And that's an even 24,000?
It's an even 24,000 in this particular budget item. There'll be more coming at the next meeting, we anticipate. So those are those two things. And we said the link strip, didn't we?
Well, that's not a budget amendment, so let's have a motion to adopt the 2 budget amendments unless folks have questions. Then you can move to the other items.
I motion that we adopt.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt and accept the shift funds and the adoption assistance funds as presented by the DSS director. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Then talk to us about your link strip, because in the past, there have been questions about the travels of the Lynx kids, some from the county commissioner level and some from, I think, this board level. So now when they take trips and they're traveling with our children, foster children, Jan reports to the board, so.
Right, and it is now now requires that we get the board's approval before they can travel. And this is a conference, the National Independent Living Conference is the conference that children have gone to for the last several years. This particular year, it is in Orlando, Florida, and that was part of what raised the question the last time. There are workshops for the youth specifically that the youth get a lot out of, and we send a couple of staff with them to help chaperone and make sure they get where they're supposed to be and those kinds of things. There are activities for our staff that help them do more with children based on what they also learn at the conference. All 50 states are represented. There are others from North Carolina going, as you can see. The budget for the conference is on the back. So we're talking about taking 4 youth and 2 adults. The total cost is $7,200. The county will pay about $570 of that. The rest of it is federal and state dollars, so very minimal dollars for the county. and that is for the adults that are going. The youth are covered 100%. So we would request that you all authorize this trip. It is scheduled for August 29th through September 1, and I believe they have to book everything by the end of this month in order to participate.
Questions from the board about this trip or the costs related to this trip?
I move approval, Madam Chairman.
I second.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to support the Lynx trip. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, and then I think Brian is going to give us an update on the outreach plan for the Low Income Energy Assistance Program, or better known as LEAP, for next fall.
Good afternoon. The, in your packet is the outreach plan for the energy programs. Low Income Energy Assistance Program is LEAP, and SIP is the Crisis Intervention Program. The Low Income Energy Assistance Program is an annual program which assists with heating-related utilities expenses, and that program operates from December 1st until March 31st, or until all the funds are exhausted. The Crisis Intervention Program is an ongoing program while funds are available, as long as funds are available to help with emergency heating or cooling needs. So that program operates year-round while we have the funds available. This plan details our community partners that assist us with LEAP, and during the last period for LEAP, this past December through March, the community partners took almost 600 applications. So our community partners have a great impact on this program and are in the community and are sometimes more accessible or closer to people than our agency location. The plan also details our media plan, how we promote the LEAP program prior to it starting. And it also details, again, the community partners, and the hours of operation are subject to change, and we've noted that in the plan. We will follow back up early in the fall with our community partners about training that we provide, and also if they want to make adjustments to times or locations where they'll be taking applications. All of the applications that are taken by our community partners are actually processed by our LEAP staff, our temporary staff that work during the operation of the program. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Questions from the board? Then it sounds like your plan is acceptable and move forward. Does that work?
Thank you.
All righty.
Thank you.
Madam
Teacher
Chairman?
policy, Jan. Oh, I'm sorry.
Quick question on the LEAP. Brian, did you mention where you're going to administrate that from? Will that be from the Human Services Center?
Yes, it will be at the Human Services Center at 203 Government Circle. That will be the agency site, yes.
Will this be the first year or the second year?
This will be the second year.
Okay, so last year worked well parking-wise, and
it did. We had no complaints about parking, and the area of the building that we have it set up in is the left end of the lobby as you go in, and there's a area down there that has a reception window, and that worked well for the program. So the 5 workers and the receptionists that work in that area are all in that area, and there's plenty of room on that end of the lobby for chairs for people to wait. So it worked very well.
And the other advantage was that if the crisis people weren't too busy, they could help with the LEAP applications if they were busy, and vice versa. So they helped each other out a lot during the crisis, during the heavy times.
Talk to us about daycare.
Okay, we basically adopted this policy last time, but I wanted you to see this in writing. If you remember, we had a lot of discussion last meeting about childcare and the fact that the state had disallowed our policies and procedures. And in that process, they told us that we could not cut children off at 9 or 10 as we've been doing it for some years. In that discussion, we also took a look at the priorities, and we added teens that were trying to finish high school, move them further up in the priority list than they had been. So basically, I just wanted you to see this in writing and make sure that everybody was good with what was written, and we will, once it gets signed off on, we will submit it to the state for their final approval. But we are basically doing what they told us we had to do.
You need an approval, don't you? So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded to approve the policy as presented. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. And next item on the agenda, Angela Hart and the provider increase discussion along with Michelle McCorkle.
And this is one of those acronyms people need to know. Non-emergency medical transportation. We call it NIMIT.
Isn't this new?
No, we've been doing non-emergency medical transportation for many, many years. And so we've been talking with our providers. There's been a lot of changes for the providers. We have not done a rate increase for the providers in some period of time. And so based on all of this discussion, it felt like it was time to really review our payment policies, our other policies, and get the board's approval on those. So this is an opportunity for y'all to have lots of conversation and input on how we might move forward with this. We are required to provide transportation for those patients who need medical transportation or to reach doctors or medical-related services. It's part of their Medicaid package if they have no other way of getting there. So there's a certification process, et cetera. And then we arrange that transportation, or we reimburse their family if they drive themselves or some family member drives them. That can be arranged that way too. So there's a variety of things, but this is primarily dealing with our private contracted transportation system. It does not include PATS because PATS sets their own standards, et cetera, and we do what PATS does. Okay, so that's my intro on all this.
Okay. With that said, we formed a Medicaid Transportation Committee that consisted of myself, Michelle McCorkle, Teresa Fleming, who is over the Medicaid Transportation Program herself, the program part, and Marie Gonzalez, who is the supervisor that is over the person that does the Medicaid Transportation reimbursements. Okay, can you hear me? Is it working? We all sat down and we gathered information from surrounding counties to see what they were paying their Medicaid providers. The Medicaid transportation rate is not capped, so basically we can pay a higher rate if need be. So with all of those in place, we sat down and we came up with this proposal for you guys. Not working.
Now if we can get the clicker to work.
Now if I can get the clicker to work. Thank you.
That's the enter button.
Okay. All right. The overview is transportation providers must enter into a contract annually, and in order to contract with DSS, there are state and local requirements that pose significant expenses to the providers. They are required by the state of North Carolina to have workers' compensation if they have over 3 employees. And one of the providers told me that she had to add this coverage, and it cost her $35,000 per year. In addition, they have to have the commercial general liability. Minimum amount is $1 million, and that's been ranging between the providers anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 per year, depending on where they get it from. There's also automobile liability insurance. They have to have the limit of $500,000 for bodily injury and property damage, a limit of $500,000 for uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage, and a limit of $2,000 for medical payment coverage. city government requires, and these requirements are in order for them to transport through the city of Greenville. This is in addition to the county. There are city ordinance fees that they have to pay. The costs vary depending on how many vehicles they have and the type of, if they're a taxi or if they're just a transportation provider. It falls in line with the city of Greenville ordinance, so those costs vary. And in order to be in the NC Tracks, which is the billing system, there is an initial $200 enrollment fee. So with all of these costs added, these Medicaid transportation providers have had the following rates for the past 10 years, and they have never received a raise, even with the increase of gas and everything when we went through the $3 a gallon stage. They receive $127 per mile for anything other than in-town trips. For one-way in-town trips, it's $7.50 per trip. In-town round trips are $15. No-shows is half of a one-way trip, which would be $3.75 for each no-show. Wheelchair transports receive $55 round trip for up to 21.7 miles. And when the round trip is greater than 21.7 miles, the $1.27 rate applies in lieu of the flat rate. You go for it.
The department would like to propose the following rate schedule to the providers for this valuable service. $1.90 per mile, $2.85 per mile for weekends and after hours, with the wheelchair rates round trip $55 up to 30 miles. At 31 miles, $1.90 per mile. At 31 miles, if it is a weekend or after hour rate, it would be the $2.85 per mile. For one-way wheelchair rates, $27.50 up to 15 miles. At 16 miles, $1.90 per mile. And if it is the weekend and after hours, then after 31 miles, $2.85. And with the county no longer paying for no-shows, which would equate to an approximate saving of $18,000. Major benefits for this proposal would be consistent per mile rate for all trips, 50% increase for normal work hours, $1.24, 1.24% increase for hours outside of the normal workday. The normal workday would be defined as 5 p.m. to outside of the normal workday, which would be defined as 5 p.m. to 5 a.m., Monday through Friday, and weekends. And the county would no longer incur non-reimbursable expenditures for no-shows. Upon your review and approval, the effective date of the proposed rate schedule would be August 1st, 2017. So,
one slide.
It should be 124%.
Right, but, so, anytime after 5 on Monday through Friday, and then Monday to Thursday, and anytime after 5 on Friday until 5 a.m. Monday becomes your weekend.
Right.
Okay.
And we're struggling to find folks that will provide transportation during those hours. And so that is part of the reason for suggesting that a higher rate. There won't be as many people probably riding at those hours, but when we need somebody, we need somebody. And that is primarily, it could be some dialysis folks and stuff, but primarily that is our working population. When they first get a job and they don't have transportation, we try to provide transportation for them until they get that first paycheck, and then they can kind of start paying their own transportation. And it has been a struggle trying to find folks to do that, because invariably they start you on the second shift, or they start you, if you're doing fast food, you get the midnight shift or whatever. And so it's just been really difficult. So that was one of the reasons for suggesting a higher rate for those times.
And what kind of blowback do you expect from the providers when you no longer reimburse for a no-show?
You want to speak to
Yeah,
that?
I'll speak to that. The no-shows, it's around maybe $18,000 annually. There are not a whole lot of no-shows, and what we define as a no-show is if they go to pick the client up and the client is not there. We'll still pay if they go to a doctor's appointment and for some reason they're not seen, then the provider can still bill and be paid for that at county cost. But when you look, I think the most that I saw from a particular vendor, which is a pretty good sized vendor, was $250 worth of no-shows in a month's time. And with the rate increase that we're proposing, this should offset those costs for them.
And the no-shows, we get no reimbursement for. The
Right.
regular transportation, it's 100% reimbursed, so.
I just knew that if it was a long-term transportee, you kind of know if they're, it's just when you ask that provider to go get that brand-new person, to me, that would be the one where it'd be very dicey because you don't have a history with this consumer, so you don't know if they will tend to show or not.
Oftentimes, when we are introducing a new individual for the service, the vendor is provided with the telephone number, so they can make contact as well to confirm if in fact they still
So they could
intend to
make the
keep
call
that
before
appointment
they
on that
left the
morning.
shop,
Yes.
and not at least drive out there and then
Right.
or pull in the driveway and nobody. Okay.
And there is some expectation that they will call to be sure that that person is still planning to go. They should be doing that anyway.
Does this include behavioral health or strictly physical health appointments?
It would include all
Anything that's
Med-
Medicaid.
Medicaid.
Medicaid, okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Then do we have a motion to support the increase, assuming you could do it within existing budget and implement it on August 1st? And is 2.5 weeks long enough to get it all in place?
Yeah. Well, right, the question was, it was in the budget. Because now Medicaid transportation is being paid for through the state, they actually write the checks. The county no longer writes the checks for that, except in those situations where the person's a no-show, or the situation when we're paying the mother to go take her grandmother or something to the doctor. Those we still write locally. So most of this doesn't even run through the county budget anymore.
Right.
So the rates for a family member to transport would be the same as a vendor?
They get a mileage rate.
It's a mileage rate. I think it's 28 cents per mile is what the rate is
IRS,
now.
they get
It's
some
the
IRS
IRS rate. So,
And it's not, because, when you go to the doctor and drive yourself to the doctor, there's a rate that you can get reimbursed on, you can put into your taxes. It's using that IRS.
Based on that rate, that makes sense.
And the $1.90, that's what Pat's, I think, is billing us now for what they're doing. So it felt like we were being reasonably consistent by using that figure.
right.
Okay, so since most of this billing is done by the state, my question then is there enough time between now and August 1st to get all the changes made where you need to change them, so if somebody's billing in August, they're gonna get paid at the correct rate?
Yeah, we should be, all we have to do is send an email out to our transportation providers and send an email out to NC Tracks to let them know that that's what we're paying. And that's all that is required.
Okay.
And we're much more consistent now with what a lot of the counties around us are doing.
Right. Yeah.
And our payment rate, from what y'all told me, was sort of in the middle of what different
It is.
counties were doing.
That was my question, good.
So do we have a motion to adopt this policy and have them implement it for August 1st?
I so move.
And I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Then move forward with your rate change. And the next item on the agenda is the director's report.
And we do expect there will be some conversation with some of the providers, but we feel like this is a good direction to go. Okay, so the director's report is pretty much a lot of our standard things. I'll try and take a few minutes longer just because, again, we have a new board member. We have been doing a vacancy report for the board. You were doing that before I even got here, so that the board has some sense of what our turnover looks like and how long it's taking to recruit, et cetera. And so right now we have 18 vacant positions. 3 of those are the new positions that were approved July 1. So they are not turnover-related positions. And we, earlier this year, we were something like 30 positions, so we have definitely made a lot of progress. Positions right now, we have 5 that are being interviewed, 4 positions that are being advertised, if I'm on the right line here, yeah. And like I say, 3 of those are the brand-new positions. We have 1 in background check status and 6 that we are currently screening. 2 positions are being held because we're doing some reclassification of them, and we brought 4 additional folks on. As you can see, the majority of our vacancies at this point are in our adult and children's services areas, and both have had a fair amount of turnover. Some of that was generated because of promotions and reorganization kinds of things. People retired and some people moved around, and some of them were folks who actually left the agency. That's kind of the vacancy report for this month. If anybody's got any questions, I'll try and answer them. Okay. The other thing that we have here is my director's report, which y'all got a copy of. I don't know if you've got any questions about that. The legislative report was the other thing I was going to talk about, but I did want to say if you had anything you wanted to talk about the director's report, I would entertain questions. We have a lot of stuff going on legislatively right now. Actually at the national level, there's a whole lot going on, as you all know, because everybody's been reading about healthcare and healthcare reform and what we may or may not do and how that may or may not help impact us. In that information I gave you, they use the term HCBS, and that's the home and community-based services that folks get. And that's one of the things that would be, people are guessing that since that's an optional service, that folks, you do it through a waiver, and it's an optional service for Medicaid, that if state budgets got tight, then that might be something that you would lose. So I wanted to make sure folks kind of understood that. And that's what pays for things like CAP, home health aides, personal care services, adult day health. Those are some of the things that are paid for with that kind of service. So since I had that acronym in there, I thought I better explain that. The SHIP program, I just got another email just before I came up here asking folks to get on the phones and get on email and send letters because the House budget folks are going to be talking about the budget this coming week, and that the SHIP piece is definitely on the radar as something, if it doesn't get in somebody's budget, either the House or the Senate, it may go away. And several of us in this room have applied for Medicare benefits, I suspect. And it is not an easy thing to figure out which plan is the best and where do you get your drug, all that. So this has been a vital program, I think, for a lot of folks. So that's why I mentioned that. The Senior Community Service Employment Program is another thing that is potentially on the block, and is really important to folks who use that service and who try to get those part-time jobs to supplement their retirement income. So that's another one that people are talking about. The Low-Income Energy Assistance Program that Brian just talked about is another potential cut that may be eliminated in an upcoming budget year. It's being talked about significantly, as is the Social Services Block Grant that pays for a lot of our staff and a lot of services that are provided statewide and in many states for folks. So they cover in North Carolina everything from child care to mental health services, in-home services, just a lot of things. So that's something to be concerned about, and certainly we need to pay attention and write letters if we need to. And these may be things, I don't know if the board would like to weigh in on any of these things, and if so, we could bring some of those letters if there's time, and y'all could, say, yeah, we as a DSS board want to say, I've already signed Pitt County DSS on to opposing the Social Services Block Grant elimination, but the board could also do that. Food stamps, they're talking about the elimination of categorical eligibility at the national level. And if you remember, in North Carolina, the legislature attempted to do that this year and then backed down. And in North Carolina, that was going to cut 133,000 people off the food stamp rolls. So nationally, you can just extrapolate to see what that would do. One of the positive things that's going on at the national level is last year there was a Family First Prevention Act, which was going to work a lot with children coming in through Child Protective Services, front-loading services, trying to keep them from having to come into care. If they came into care, helping to support them in care and moving them to permanence. That almost got passed, but not quite. So they are now bringing back some pieces of that, and that's the list of things that I have provided in this document that have seemed to be getting some interest at the House and the Senate level. The bullets show you what the House is doing, reducing barriers for relative foster parents, modernizing interstate placement. That's still very much a paper process that takes forever to get done. Supporting families in substance abuse treatment, partnership grants to strengthen families around parental substance abuse, improving services for our older youth in foster care, moving it from 21 to 23. So that would be very interesting. And then the Senate is looking at some things too. So that's why I threw those in the list. And if anybody's got any questions, stop me. From a North Carolina legislative session or state area, we've already got the long session over. But when they adjourned, there was a Senate Joint Resolution 686 that outlines when they'll be back and what they may try to cover. And they're going to be back August the 3rd, September the 6th, potentially in November, and the short session starts May 16th. So this is almost being a year-round one this year. They're going to talk about a lot of different things when they come back. The one on August the 3rd is primarily to deal with vetoes and that kind of thing that they might want to talk about. The things that did pass, raise the age. North Carolina will now be looking at 16 and 17-year-olds as juveniles starting in December of 2019. So that's a big step forward. The preschool program, more at 4, adding 3,525 additional slots. Ryan's Law, Family Child Accountability Act, it became House Bill 630. It was Senate Bill 594. It did get lumped in together and pass, and if you remember, one of the big things in that was the regionalization of local DSSs. That is now off the table for the short term. It is to be studied. They use the term visioning of what DSS regionalization would look like, with the pros and cons being outlined. I have sent you a copy of a time frame for all the different actions that have to be taken by what dates in that bill, because that's there's a lot of dates in that bill. So some of us may be part of the work groups. There are going to be a variety of work groups. There will be somebody from the Board Members Association appointed to some work groups. There will be, I'm sure, people from a variety of agencies that are going to be on different work groups. There are 3 directors now serving on the big work group, but the sub-work groups, they're going to bring in more directors and more staff to talk about some of the issues that need to be explored. So you've got the timeline. Take a look at that. The accuracy Medicaid eligibility determination, Senate Bill 546, that got lumped into the budget bill. It did pass. That is the bill that says that the county DSS shall be financially responsible for the erroneous issuance of Medicaid benefits and claims payments. The senator that introduced this did not wish to listen to anything anybody had to say. So there's a lot of other pieces in this bill, and not all of it is bad, but this was the one that was most concerning. So we have decided that we're going to have to demonstrate, as there's a lot of deadlines in this bill too, as we move through those deadlines, demonstrate what problems there are and how it's going to impact, and then that will have to get put forward maybe in a way to make some adjustments. Because what we have suggested is there ought to be an appeal process, a waiver process, a limit on the amount that the county would have to pay, some of those kinds of things, but we got nowhere with that in the initial discussion of this. So that bill is out there, and it did pass. Something else that I included for you that I think is kind of cool is implementing the home visits for pregnant women and families with young children. That's in the health department, and I think that has a lot of real positive potential for us as it relates to our child welfare programs. The establishment of the Subcommittee on Aging kind of got lumped into the Legislative Oversight Committee. They're going to be who's going to have to authorize whether that goes or not, because it didn't actually pass as a bill. And then some money has been set aside to help counties make the transition to NC fast. They remember the problems that occurred when we did this in the food stamp and Medicaid area, and recognizing that you've got to have your child welfare staff on the road and doing what they need to do. There is the potential for some support to be able to be hired to help backfill or do some other things on a time-limited basis. We don't know how much we will get of that money, and it's pretty wide open as to how we might want to spend it. You could spend it doing clerical support kinds of things, so staff don't have to do as many clerical activities. You might could contract for a social worker or two. I mean, there's a variety of things that you might could do to help keep things moving while you're trying to implement NC Fast and child welfare. House Bill 403, we're still watching. It's the LME MCO claims reporting. It's basically an administrative bill, but it's behind the scenes called the Cardinal Bill. It has to do with the Cardinal Mental Health Program and the mess they got into with everything. The House is thinking about it more administratively. The Senate is thinking about that they want to pretty much, when the capitated plans come in for Medicaid, move mental health in at that point as opposed to phasing it in many years later. And they also want to transfer any assets that the mental health groups have to the state when that happens. And so that's going to be an interesting fight because the House is in one place, the Senate's in another place, and there's a lot of thought that in one of these many meetings they have over the next 6 months, something will be done because they really want to clamp down on payments and salaries and a lot of things. So that's one we're watching because we use a lot of their services, and so we need to pay attention to what's going on there. So that's what's going on legislatively. Like I say, I've attached a variety of things, but the timetable for Ryland's Law, I think, is going to be very interesting for all of us to follow. So that is my legislative report, and if anybody wants to go look at Senate Joint Resolution 686, they can know exactly what's going to be talked about at each of the different convenings. So, anybody got any questions about what's going on at the DSS?
Questions from members of the board? I said questions from members of the board for the director.
I think you've handled it quite well, looking at the fact that we got to look at a bill this year more than ever before, impacting citizens and the stress and the strain that they're facing. It's just something. I think you did well with it.
Thank you. You know, one thing I forgot, Michelle, do we want to talk about what you're doing this month? Is it too early? Is it too early? Okay. Well, there's going to be some activities in child support that you'll hear about next month. Because next month is child support month, and Michelle's getting a head start this month with some activities that should encourage payment. We'll call it that.
Encourage
Yeah.
So, following up on Mary, other board member comments?
I'd just like to welcome Dr. Bunch to the board.
Thank you very much. I think I survived the first meeting.
Because unless Becky has any comments, beyond echoing Jim's welcome, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And our next meeting is August the, put my glasses on, 8th, in this room at 4 p.m. And we will hear from Michelle at that meeting?
Yes, we will.